So it's 1 week after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and the effects of his brutal murder has left ripple effects throughout the whole world. I want to start off by reading a verse from the Bible, from Genesis 50, verse 20, one of my favorite verses from the Bible. But I want to give a little background to this verse. So, this is, of course, Joseph that is speaking in this verse. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his brothers when he was a young boy because they were jealous of him. Then they sold him as a slave. He was later in Egypt when he was working as a slave, accused of rape, thrown in jail. And God used all of those bad circumstances, all of the bad things that happened to Joseph, and eventually he used Joseph to save the world from a terrible famine. When we get to Genesis 50, Joseph is the second in command of Egypt. He's the right hand man of the Pharaoh, and he's basically doing everything for the Pharaoh. He has gathered grain and food to save the world from the terrible famine, and the whole world is coming to Egypt to get grain and food to not die. And it was the same with the brothers of Joseph. They also came to Egypt. He recognized them. They did not know it was him, but then he revealed himself to them. He said, I'm Joseph. They feared for their lives that he would now take revenge, but he did not do that. And there's a lesson for us to learn in that already. We should not act in revenge to the death of Charlie Kirk. But then there's a second time after their father Jacob dies, then they fear again that now that their father has died, their brother Joseph will take revenge on them. But then he reflects on everything in verse 20 of Genesis 50, and he tells them, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done by saving many lives. And this speaks to me in what has happened during this week regarding the assassination and the effects of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The enemy, the devil, and demons, bad people, they intended the murder of Charlie Kirk for harm. He was specifically shot in the neck. The neck is where sound begins. That's where our voices come from. And that's why he was specifically shot in the neck to invoke fear and intimidation, to invoke horror, to make us afraid to speak the truth and to stand for the truth like Charlie Kirk did. But Charlie Kirk is a very good example. Charlie Kirk was martyred, he was killed because he spoke the truth. And the enemy thought that they would use this to silence Christians, to silence logical thinking people across the world. But we saw the opposite effect being eventually reached. And that just reminds me of what Paul writes in Romans 8, verse 28, where he says, and we know that in all things, yes, also the big tragedy of Christians being killed. And we know that in all things, the good things, but also the bad things. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. We've seen that with this assassination of Charlie Kirk, the effect is that basically two big things has happened around the world. The first big thing that has happened is firstly that a lot of people, because of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, because of the reaction of the left, where they are laughing or rejoicing or happy that someone was murdered, a lot of people were deeply, deeply sorrowed by this and horrified as well. And a lot of people has opened their Bibles for the first time. A lot of people went to church for the first time this Sunday. And I want to play a few short clips to show you what the joy is and how big the joy is, and what people from around the world said about people opening their Bibles, going to church, and wanting a relationship now with God.
Well, just finished up a record weekend. We had about 1,500 more people than seats. We had people walking, I don't know, half a mile to get to church. My voice is shot. We had 5 services. We were at some services 3 rows deep, standing room only. We really need a new building. My phone has been blowing up. Pastors are seeing people flock to church, and an entire young generation that admired and respected Charlie Kirk coming to church, seeking answers to the question of what is happening and what is God doing and what is Satan doing.
I have probably 5,000 comments, messages, emails, DMs from you guys saying Charlie Kirk introduced me to God. Now what? How do I pray? How do I read the Bible? How do I go to church? It's amazing. And he would be so excited about all of it. But since
I've never ever opened the Bible before. In fact, I know nothing about Christianity or Jesus. But yesterday, after witnessing the assassination of Charlie Kirk on the internet, and it just being so normal to people, like watching this man get shot in the neck, and everybody being so desensitized and just going on with life like it was normal. Something was calling me to my husband's Bible. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law, my husband, they have been trying to bring me to Christianity, since I met them. They're not like overbearing, they don't force it on me, but they talk about it. And they respect that, I don't know how I feel. But for the very first time yesterday, I grabbed the Bible. I don't know what I'm looking for in the Bible. I don't know why I felt like I needed to grab the Bible. But I grabbed my husband's Bible. And the page that I opened up to was the verse, John 8:32. And it said, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And I feel like that changed me so much. But I feel like Charlie Kirk's death, woke me up spiritually, and now I can't unsee the truth.
So the second thing that we have seen since the assassination of Charlie Kirk is, of course, that there has been vigils and also big marches in honor of Charlie Kirk and what he stood for. This is very important. On a lot of the signs that were being held up during these marches were the words freedom of speech. And that is very important. So, first and foremost, we must remember again that behind the curtain, this is a big fight between good and evil, light and darkness, the children of God and Satan and his demons. We should remember that the whole goal of the assassination of Charlie Kirk was to instill fear and horror and to silence the children of God that speak the truth, that want to live the truth, and also everybody that is a logical thinker. And that is very important. I think that is why a lot of people were so saddened by this assassination of Charlie Kirk, why they felt deep sorrow in their hearts, because God has used this assassination to change the hearts of people. But the reason is because people also realized what happened. So, first of all, since my previous video, it has been confirmed that the killer of Charlie Kirk is indeed Tyler Robertson. He has been captured. And of course, it has also been confirmed that he is in a relationship with, of course, a transgender man, transitioning to becoming a female. And I've already said it. Demons are genderless. And that is why they want people to also be genderless. This is part of the big agenda of the devil and of demons, and eventually to use and possess people, to also be genderless and to not choose sides. And when you don't choose sides, you're actually choosing the devil's side. That's what he wants. He wants you to be passive, but we cannot be passive. We need to stand up. And that is why people stood up, because they realized it's much bigger. The picture is much bigger than just freedom of speech. What happens is, when you stand up for the truth, when you speak the truth, the enemy has showed that they are willing to kill you. When they cannot, in a debate, like Charlie Kirk always had, debates where everybody gets a free and a equal opportunity, when the enemy cannot defeat you with logic, they will kill you. They will silence you, and this instills fear in people. And this is the bigger picture that we have to see. But people also realized that there's a bigger picture, and that is that they realize today it's my freedom of speech. They might kill me when I publicly declare my faith, and when I publicly speak logic, like Charlie Kirk did. But this is how it begins. And we already see the effects of this in places like Britain and Australia. Tomorrow it will be even worse, that people of Christian faith will be prosecuted for their faith, and churches will not be able to preach the gospel freely anymore, because that will be seen as hate speech against some group of transgender or homosexuals or people that are pro abortion or what the case might be. And so it's about a bigger picture than just free speech. So that's why it's so important that people woke up. And that's why people did these marches, why they got together. And that is very important. So there's two things I want to say about this. The first thing is that if I should sum up Charlie Kirk in just one sentence, or in one word even, it would be free speech. And therefore, and he was also known as a very big Christian and wanted to be known as a Christian. And that's why it's so important. If we look at Islam, we see that this is what they do. They bomb us, they kill you, they will shoot you in the neck, because they cannot defeat you with logic, they cannot defeat you with the truth. So their weapon is fear. And as children of God, we should not fear. We should remember that we are children of the Almighty God. He is the only one that's almighty. Yes, Satan, demons, people that are really bad can be mighty, but God is almighty. And God said we should not be afraid. God said to Joshua in Joshua 1 verse 9, he said, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." It's very important that we realize in this time that we should not be silenced. This is the time to stand up for our rights. This is the time to proclaim the wonderful gospel that Jesus has died for us. And even like with Charlie Kirk, if we have to be killed, God will use that for good. And we should hold on to that our God is mighty, and he can use the worst circumstances, the biggest tragedy. He can turn it around, just like he did when Jesus was crucified. He can turn that circumstances around and use it for good, and use it to get more people to know God, to save more lives. I want to end this discussion with a verse from Matthew. So it's also important that we should know that the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but also all of the events that has followed. People that has come to Christ, people that went to churches for the first time or opened their Bibles for the first time, people that want to now know more about God, but also people that march for Charlie Kirk and to commemorate him, and also the other side, the left that celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. That just shows us again that the divide between left and right, the divide between evil and good, the divide between Satan and God is just so much clearer now. And that's why we should make sure that we are on the right side. So I want to end off with some verses from Matthew 25. Jesus is talking in these verses, and from verse 31, he writes, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne." So this will happen when God comes again. He is the one that wins the battle. We win in and through him, so we know we have already won. And then verse 32 reads, "All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats." And then he goes on to say that the sheep will be on his right hand side and the goats will be on his left hand side. And then verse 34 says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world.'" And then a few verses later, in verse 41, he's speaking about the goats, those on his left, and he tells them, "Then he will say to those on his left, 'Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels.'" And the angels of the devil, of course, are the demons. So, to end off, I want to say, do not be discouraged, but have hope, because Jesus already defeated death. He will always use these bad circumstances and all circumstances, like we saw in Romans 8, verse 28, for the good and for the greater good. So don't be silenced, don't be discouraged, but now is a time more than ever to proclaim the truth of the Word of God, to not just proclaim it with our words, but especially also with how we live every day, to show people who Christians are, to show people the love of God that He wants to reflect through us, and also to invite people to come to church, to invite people to open their Bibles, read about the graceful God that has saved them by grace alone, and of course to show people love in this world, because that is what the world needs now more than ever. I want to encourage you as well, if you enjoyed this video, go and look at my initial reaction a day or two after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and subscribe to my channel, like the videos, and please leave a comment. God bless you and thank you.